Born and raised in Washington, D.C., he is a gifted interpreter of issues and values as they emerge in American popular culture. He'll make you laugh. He'll make you mad. But he will tell you the truth. Here's your host, Edward Woodson, on 880 AM, The Biz.
Hello, America. Welcome to the Edward Woodson Show. Greetings from the Magic City. I'm Edward Woodson, and I'm so mad. Well, by now, you know, the verdict is in. Justice for George. And in other news, millions of Facebook users suddenly get their law degrees. Amazing. The Department of Justice is going to try to file charges against George Zimmerman. And why is Al Sharpton on Meet the Press? Where's the white spokesman? That's what I'd like to know. Still looking for the white spokesman. And you will not believe some of the tweets and how celebrities view the Trayvon Martin verdict. These stories and more when we return. Do not touch that dial. I got a lot for you today. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everyone. Unless you've been under a rock this weekend, which you probably wish you were, we know now the outcome of the George Zimmerman trial. Acquitted on all charges. As I said from the outset, if you were listening to my show, I predicted that there would be an acquittal because, frankly, there were no facts. The prosecution should have never bought this case. It was a classic overcharge by the state of Florida. They do this all the time. There was pressure brought about by the Justice Department, by the Obama administration. First of all, let me just say one thing. This is clearly a tragedy. All right? 17-year-old kid died. That's a tragedy in and of itself. I want to just address that first of all, okay? I have no doubt Trayvon Martin was minding his own business. You know, he left at halftime, the All-Star game. Think about this. He was, he went to the store to get, famously, to get Skittles and an iced tea. Probably was hanging out. Maybe smoked a joint, whatever. Whatever he was doing, doesn't really matter. Okay? Minding his own business. He wasn't doing anything. Wasn't hurting anybody. And then the confrontation occurred with George Zimmerman. It's a terrible tragedy for both individuals. I'm sure George Zimmerman would love to take it back. His life is never going to be the same again. However, that is separate from the criminal case. Okay? That's separate. And I will acknowledge that that was a horrible tragedy for the family. I feel badly for them as well. We all should. However, this case should have never been brought because this was a classic case of self-defense. You know, people, this was amazing to me. It's like all these people on Facebook and Twitter, all these people now got their law degrees. They all have their law degrees now. They're experts in the law. Okay? Don't comment on this case unless you watch the trial, unless you know the facts. Because so many people out there, I guarantee you all these people commenting on the case didn't watch the trial, didn't know the facts. I had a caller last week that said, and this is parroted by the mainstream media, well, George Zimmerman followed Trayvon Martin, therefore he was the aggressor. Because it says so on the tape. Have you heard the tape? Have you heard the tape in its entirety? Have you heard the unedited version of the tape? Because the tape that most people are referring to in the mainstream media was edited by NBC. Because that's what they do. They edit tapes all the time. And on the tape, and I will reiterate this again, on the tape, when the dispatcher says to George Zimmerman, she says, "Are you following him?" He says, "Yes." She says, "You don't have to do that." And George Zimmerman says, "Okay." At which point he stops. And then he says, according to the trial, that after that, he was sucker punched by Trayvon. Okay? This was all about self-defense. Okay? The guy had a broken nose. He had his head bashed in. You don't have to have injuries. Okay? In a self-defense case. And people keep talking about stand your ground. I've heard all these pundits over the weekend talk about, the Florida law, stand your ground, has to be changed. Well, this wasn't about stand your ground. He never had a stand your ground hearing. This was self-defense. Because self-defense is a defense to murder, manslaughter. It's a defense. That's what this was. They never had a stand your ground hearing before a judge. And they did that on purpose. The lawyers were, Mark O'Mara did an incredible job with his client. The prosecution, though, was horrible. Okay? They were terrible. If you want to be prosecuted, you want these guys to prosecute you. Because they did a horrible job. And this is, again, classic Florida. With the overcharge. They overcharged Casey Anthony with first-degree murder. They overcharged George Zimmerman with second-degree murder. This is a classic example of Florida overcharging. I mean, they didn't arrest the guy for a reason. They had to actually fire the police chief, throw him under the bus, bring in a new guy. The Department of Justice had to get involved, send down protesters to Stanford. And remember one thing, people, this is all a ploy to divide us all. Okay, that's the thing that people don't realize. And black people, you're being used by the mainstream media, by the Democrat Party, as they've used you since the Reconstruction. Okay? This is a classic example of the powers that be dividing us. They want us to fight with each other. Classic. Divide and conquer. Don't believe the hype. Don't fall into the trap. That's what this is all about. It's classic. This is being used to divide people. Don't let it happen. And by the way, I don't recall the outrage in the black community after the O.J. Simpson verdict. I remember people celebrating after the O.J. Simpson verdict. There was no outrage. Not only that, you've got black-on-black crime that occurs every day. 50 teenagers were killed over the July 4th weekend in Chicago. Did you hear anything about that in the media? No. No, because black-on-black crime, that's okay. 91% of all murders upon black people are committed by other black people. But we don't hear about that. No. No. Because that doesn't make people hate each other. That doesn't make people hate each other. Kermit Gosnell killed more black children than George Zimmerman. How many on the left cared about that? Nobody cared about that. Didn't even make the media till after the fact. No, nobody cared about that one. And why is it? Why is it that race had to become infused in this? Huh? I thought this wasn't about race, but yet it was about race. And liberals, do you realize how you define justice? Justice is only about things you agree with. If you don't agree with it, then there's no justice. And Al Sharpton, the race baiter. Al Sharpton has never had a job in his life besides perpetrating hoaxes on people. Al Sharpton. The complete meltdown, by the way, of Al Sharpton was incredible to me to see. And the media, CNN, they should be just ashamed of themselves because the media, the investment of the media in this case, in wanting to see this guy, George Zimmerman, hung in effigy, to me, it was disgusting. To see the meltdown of Sunny Hostin on CNN after the whole time she was predicting that the prosecution was doing a masterful job. They were doing a great job. I expect a conviction. Did I not say from the very beginning that this was going to be an acquittal? Yes, sir, I did. Absolutely. Because it was a terrible case. And again, the Twitter world exploded and Facebook exploded with comments. A bunch of people that don't know anything, frankly. And that's what's amazing to me is now the media quotes people from Twitter. That's the news now. You go to Twitter and find out people's reaction from Twitter. Are you kidding me? That's now the media's way to gather up their information. They go to Twitter. I mean, it's really seriously disgusting. And also I have to say the president commenting and using this as another opportunity for gun control. He doesn't comment about Chris Stevens' death, U.S. ambassador. Doesn't comment on Edward Snowden. Meanwhile, the government, FYI, is spying on everybody. They're violating the Fourth Amendment. This is all being used to divide us all. Remember that. I'm going to go on a little break. 305-541-2350. Don't touch that dial. I'll be right back.
Good, baby. It was all a dream. I used to
Don't touch that dial. Back in a moment with Edward Woodson on 880 AM. The Biz.
Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Sipping on private stock way back when I had the red and black lumberjack.
Gun World of South Florida is a state-of-the-art shooting facility with full gun shop with 50 years experience as gunsmiths, located in Deerfield. Book a class online at gunworldofsouthflorida.com with professional instructors or call 954-596-0526. A cool place to visit with climate control, gun sales and rentals, and extra-wide shooting booths. Visit or call Gun World of South Florida at 954-596-0526.
Don't believe for 1 second that the banks or the government are going to help you modify your mortgage or reduce your payments. It just won't happen. I'm Richard Burton. I've represented hundreds of South Florida homeowners defending the foreclosures on their homes. And anyone who takes money from you claiming that they can reduce your payments and modify your mortgage, it's wrong and it's illegal. You need an experienced lawyer to help you through the process. Don't ignore the process or you will lose your home. I'm Richard Burton.
Politicians are spending so much time chasing scandals, they've forgotten about the economy.
We have had sustained economic growth, but we are not where we need to be yet.
Your 401k statement is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates.
You never know what you're going to get.
Will the second half of 2013 be up or down?
Not at all unusual. The market goes up and down and all around.
The information we give you on this station, you can take to the bank. 880 AM, The Biz.
This is the Wall Street Business Network.
South Florida's only business radio station, 880 AM, The Biz.
Want to talk to Edward? Call right now. 305-541-2350. 305-541-2350.
He's still so mad. Now back to your host, Edward Woodson, on 880 AM, The Biz.
Welcome back to the show. Speaking of tweets, rapper Lupe Fiasco. I love this guy. Lupe, that's a woman's name, Lupe. Lupe Fiasco, I love him. I got mad respect, as the kids say. No, I have listened to his music.
Music's pretty good.
You know what I like about him, too? He's always going after Obama, you know? He's always going after Obama. He's the one that was thrown off the stage during the inauguration.
Yeah, I remember.
Because he was rapping, exercising his First Amendment. You can't do that. But he wrote a tweet. Half y'all been partying to Black Death for the past 2 decades. The other half watch the party. Don't be angry now. Basically, he suggests that there's reasonable doubt about what happened. And he also went on to say, rub your face in it, swallow down that hard pill. Black blood spills in the streets of America nightly at the hands of other blacks. As I said, he said the true enemy of black people is not the George Zimmermans of the world, but the complacency and cowardice in the black community. He notes that most perpetrators of violent crime against black people are themselves black. See, but people don't want to talk about that. God forbid. No. Of course not. There's a new Pew poll out that Americans hate journalists even more than they did 4 years ago. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder that they hate journalists? Journalists are literally right above lawyers under the new Pew poll. I think lawyers are the most hated profession.
Well, now we're like Europe because they've been hating journalists for decades.
They should be. As a matter of fact, good segue. AP reporter on Zimmerman verdict.
I'm the man.
So we can now kill teenagers. Christina Silva, she writes, so we can all kill teenagers now. Just checking. So much for being objective. This is an Associated Press reporter. People are just so dumb. You know that? Seriously. Some of the other tweets. Victor Cruz. Now I really don't like Victor Cruz. Okay, because the wide receiver from the Giants.
Yeah, who's Victor Cruz?
He's a wide receiver from the Giants. Because, I'm a big Redskin fan, so I don't like him anyway. He wrote, thoroughly confused. Zimmerman don't last a year before the hood catches up to him. All right, Victor Cruz. We've got Randy from South Florida Gun World. Randy, how are you?
I'm good, Edward. How are you today?
Good. What a day for you to call, man.
Well, Zimmerman gets the walk.
Justice for George.
I guess so.
Justice for George, man. As well he should have, because legally the case should have never been brought. But I want to talk to you about this. First of all, how do you think this is going to affect the business? And also I saw a couple things, articles, and I wanted to bring this up with you. Permits have now soared.
Yeah, it's crazy.
To allow guns to be concealed weapons. Permits, conceal and carry permits have soared. And I just saw this. This was interesting. Illinois has abolished a ban on carrying concealed weapons. Illinois, of all places.
Well, that was taken away from them when the president was in office there in Illinois.
They brought it back. Overwhelmingly.
Well, they've had a tremendous rise in crime since concealed carry was taken away from them.
Exactly.
They are the number one state in the country.
The number one state in the country. And, it's noted, and I have noted this many times on my show, Chicago, D.C., where I'm from, which used to be the murder capital of the world, has the most restrictive gun laws in the country. Chicago, D.C., yet they have the most murders by handguns.
Well,
Go figure.
The writing's on the wall there.
Yeah, and again, gun permits have soared. Have you noticed that in your business at all, Randy?
Yes. We've noticed a large jump in concealed weapon permits. A lot of seniors going for permits to carry. That surprised me, actually. I think people are nervous.
And a lot of women, too, correct?
Lots of women. A tremendous amount of women. But it was the seniors that surprised me. But yeah, we do women-only classes, and we get a lot of women in all our classes, actually.
Right. You run, actually, it's South Florida Gun World.
Gun World of South Florida.
I'm sorry, Gun World of South Florida, my bad.
That's okay.
And you're located in Broward County.
We're in Deerfield on Powerline Road.
There you go, Deerfield on Powerline Road, and you run, you have a gun range, you have classes there. It's a state-of-the-art place. I still haven't gone there yet, but I'm
well, the invitation's on the table.
Yeah, I'm going to go up there. I want to check it out. So you're seeing a huge increase in your business.
Yes. As far as people wanting to carry weapons, or at least have the ability to carry weapons, there's been a tremendous jump.
Interesting.
I just think that also is sending a message that people are scared.
Well, I noticed that the president over the weekend called for all Americans to reflect on what they can do to lessen the gun violence. And it seems as though he's going to try to do another end around on the gun laws.
Oh, yeah, he promised us that this battle wasn't over. He did sign the UN Small Arms Treaty, which it's not going to be a great thing if it goes through here for us in this country. England and Australia lost their gun rights, and they've had a tremendous increase in crime. Wherever you don't have concealed carry permits, you have an increase in crime. And places that reinstate them find that crime drops significantly. So, once again, handwriting's on the wall. Keep the criminals guessing.
Well, I've said this many times on the show, and not that I'm a big gun guy, because I'm not a big gun proponent at all. I've never owned a gun, and that's my own personal choice that I don't have a gun, so I'm not a big gun proponent. But I do believe that people have the right to carry. It's in the Second Amendment, crazy thing called the Second Amendment. And I believe that people have the right, if they want to carry guns. And you mentioned England and Australia. recent polls have shown in both those places that overwhelmingly people want to have conceal and carry.
Overwhelmingly. Yes.
Overwhelmingly. So it seems as though the tide is turning, and it's interesting because, see, I don't understand why it is that politicians always talk about this when they have bodyguards, you know?
Yes.
They got people with guns all over the place. Bloomberg talks about it, and Bloomberg has got 24/7 security around him. He's got guys with semi-automatic rifles. By last count, he's got like 5 guys around him constantly. But it's okay. The school, for instance, where David Gregory goes, his son goes to Sidwell Friends. They have armed guards around the school. The Capitol, surrounded by armed guards. So I don't understand, again, why, it's typical of politicians. It's the same reason why, for instance, they're not going to partake in Obamacare, because it's not good for them.
Right. The weapons thing is good for them. They want protection. Dianne Feinstein bought a handgun, and she's a big proponent against firearms. And when she was asked why, she said, for protection. Well, there you go. That's what we're all talking about. What makes you, have the right to do this and not us? If you're properly trained and if you have the right permits, then you should be allowed to carry. I mean, if you're a hardcore criminal, you have felonies, they won't issue you a permit, So, you do have to jump through some hoops to get one, But it's really not that difficult if you're a law-abiding citizen.
Well, if you're a hardcore criminal, then there's a reason why you're a criminal, and you're probably not going to get a gun permit. You're not going to go out and get one because you're a criminal. By definition, you are a criminal. So therefore, you're not going to go get one. And what kills me is the background check thing, okay? The background check thing, a lot of people that were against the background check said, well, the reason why we're against background checks is because we don't want the government compiling a list and being able to check this list and knowing all this information. And then lo and behold, you've got the NSA scandal. And then you're like, oh, yeah, okay. So all these crazies that were talking about the government compiling information about us, and then lo and behold, you had the NSA. So, they were actually right about the background checks.
Well, the background check happens so fast down here in Florida. I mean, you get on the phone when you call in a customer, and the whole thing happens in a minute or two. I don't know how much they're logging down at that point in time. But, you do have to be checked out before you can get a gun.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I mean, as well you should be. But, again, you make something illegal, and people still find a way to get it.
Oh, absolutely.
That's just the way it is.
Prohibition doesn't work. It's been proven over and over again.
Prohibition doesn't work. Absolutely. I've been talking about this. I've been a big proponent, for instance, of the legalization, but that's a whole nother issue of drugs, for instance. I think if you want to cut down on gun violence, for instance, and crossing the border, illegal aliens coming across the border, if you just make drugs legal, then you don't have that problem anymore. But that's a whole nother show. Could do a whole nother show about that. But anything that you make illegal, people will find a way to get around it. That's just the way it is. In fact, I saw this story the other day about baby formula in China. They rationed baby formula in China because people were just buying it, and they were taking it into Hong Kong because it was becoming people wanted it. And guess what? They limited it, and a black market overnight appeared for baby formula. I mean, if they're going to do things for baby formula, they're going to do things for anything. So
not only do people still get things that are I guess probated anyway, but sometimes it even makes it more desirable.
Absolutely. All right, Randy, I got to run, my man. I got a hard break, but
hey, good chatting with you.
Good chatting with you too. Thanks a lot for calling the show. I appreciate it, my man. All right, take care. We're going to go on a little break. 305-541-2350. Don't touch that dial. We're going to have the Blaze on next.
Don't touch that dial. Back in a moment with Edward Woodson on 880 AM. The Biz.
One goat can make the difference between nourishment and hunger. One goat can make the difference between poverty and sustained income. In the war-torn areas of southern Sudan, one goat can make the difference between life and death. Find out how you can help. Visit goatsfortheoldgoat.org. That's goats, F-O-R, theoldgoat.org. Fighting hunger, one goat at a time.
Politicians are spending so much time chasing scandals, they've forgotten about the economy.
We have had sustained economic growth, but we are not where we need to be yet.
Your 401k statement is like Forrest Gump's box of chocolates.
You never know what you're going to get.
Will the second half of 2013 be up or down?
Not at all unusual. The market goes up and down and all around.
The information we give you on this station, you can take to the bank. 880 AM, The Biz.
Want to talk to Edward? Call right now. 305-541-2350. 305-541-2350.
He's still so mad. Now back to your host, Edward Woodson, on 880 AM, The Biz.
Welcome back to the show. I got Meredith from The Blaze. Meredith, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. It's all George Zimmerman today.
Mm-hmm.
All day. You know what was the best part about it? Again, here's the thing. I take no joy in this because it's clearly a tragedy. However, it's amazing the meltdown of MSNBC and the rest of the media. It was just such a meltdown. MSNBC anchor Melissa Harris Perry.
Oh, my favorite.
She of the hyphenated name broke down in tears in the wee hours of Sunday morning while describing her reaction and the reaction of her 11-year-old daughter. She said, I think part of the reason that I was having that reaction was because my 11-year-old is apparently, she's home with her father, and she was watching and texted me that she felt like there was no justice in America. That's because that's what you've been telling her.
Exactly.
That's why she feels that way.
I'm so incensed that my daughter is repeating everything that I say.
Right. She said, her voice cracking and appearing to fight back tears. I want to play this for you because it's just amazing how these people are.
In San Francisco, Melissa Harris Perry, when we first came to you after the verdict was read, you had a very personal reaction, and it stayed with me and will stay with me, I'm sure, for a long time about how African-American parents will have to hold their children closer tonight. It raises questions, and I suppose that of many big questions, and there are broad questions about racial profiling and what will happen going forward. What does a parent say to a child tonight?
I think part of the reason I was having that reaction was because my 11-year-old is apparently, she's home with her father, and she was watching and texted me that she felt like there was no justice in America. And my big sister told me that her 12-year-old son had gotten in bed with them tonight. And as I was listening.
Why was she waiting so long? Because, that this happens all the time. Why wasn't she talking about this when over the July 4th weekend, 50 teenagers were killed over the July 4th weekend in Chicago? She never mentioned that on her show.
Where is their justice?
Where's the outrage? Where's the outrage for these unknown kids all over in every American city, frankly?
And people like Melissa Harris Perry need to understand that the concept of justice does not mean agreeing with you. In this case, obviously, I don't think there's any winner in this case. A young boy is dead, and George Zimmerman, for the rest of his life, is probably going to have to look over his shoulder worrying that somebody is going to kill him because he was acquitted of shooting. But in this case, I just think that we have to look at, he was tried and a jury of his peers made the informed decision that he was not guilty. Okay? That's the way our system works. I'm sorry that you don't agree with the verdict, but that's the way our system works. And for her daughter to be like, well, there's no justice in America. No, you just don't agree with the verdict.
Right. That's the jury system. And again, you should have been hugging your kid the whole time anyway. And now the Department of Justice is looking into the shooting death to determine whether federal prosecutors should file criminal civil rights charges.
Yeah, I mean, that's not exactly surprising. If you remember last year, Eric Holder went down to Florida and partied with Al Sharpton about this whole thing. But the FBI did an initial investigation, I thought.
Of course they did.
Shortly after the shooting, they interviewed people who knew George Zimmerman. They interviewed a ton of people, found no evidence of racial bias whatsoever, and dropped their investigation on that. So I'm curious what kind of investigation the Department of Justice is going to carry on after, the FBI said, I don't see any cause for racial concerns here.
This is just a bunch of noise. That's all it is.
It's pure politics.
Yes.
And it's disgusting.
It's just noise.
You want to talk about injustice here? You're politicizing this child's death. Or he's not even a child. He was older. He was a teenager. This kid's death,
I mean,
though.
it's again. First of all, the federal civil charges will go nowhere, because the standard of proof is a lot higher. They have to prove that he did this because he was racially motivated to do this. There's absolutely no proof of that. So again, you know what? This more division. This is all being done. I said this at the top of my show in my monologue. This is all being done to divide us. That's all this is about. It's about dividing people so that we fight amongst ourselves, and people need to resist that.
Yep, and they're also tying this obviously to, this is evidence that we need more gun control for whatever reason.
Well, of course, the president already said that.
The
president has already said that.
Yeah,
he's called for more gun control already yesterday. Well, whenever he can interject that element into it, he does that. But again, as I said, also, he does not comment on presidential things. He comments on local issues when it serves him.
When it serves him, that's the key. Yep.
And I love, and what kills me is how he said, remember he famously said last year when he weighed in that if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. Actually, if he had a son, he would look like George Zimmerman. That's what he would look like.
And what are you supposed to take away from that other than making it a racial issue?
Yeah,
that's what I don't understand. And it's hard to recall this being a real big racial issue until MSNBC edited the 911 call.
Exactly, and people see
that's what sparked the racial debate on this.
Right, and people rely on that edited version as the truth. And that kills me too. I had a caller last week say that to me, and I said, listen to the unedited version of the tape, because it's very apparent when you listen to the unedited version of the tape, he says immediately, okay.
Yeah, the media on this case.
Yeah, they were just really disgusting. They really, really, really should be ashamed of themselves. All right, Meredith, thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. We have continuing coverage of this case today on The Blaze, so check it out.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. I've got a caller from Miami, Ron. Ron from Miami, not from Phoenix.
Hey, Edward, how are you, buddy?
What's happening, my man?
Listen, I'll keep it brief. I know you're busy. Here's the thing that's really got me going, and I saw this thing last night, especially with the march in Times Square. You've got a lot of these people. Obviously, blacks consistently feel that there's reasons for them to march and to protest. And understandable. You know the thing that gets me? How many of the whites in that crowd, and the whites, would have run the other way had they seen a Trayvon walking towards them? Or more importantly, might have called 911 themselves if they were in that same situation as George Zimmerman. I think there's a lot of hypocrisy that goes on in this country when it comes to race and it comes to being put in certain situations. And I think it was evident with some of the people that were at some of these rallies.
Yeah, there's no question. And again, where is the outrage? I said this at the top of my show. I don't know if you heard me. I said, there was no outrage in the black community after the O.J. Simpson verdict. There was no outrage.
Well, the O.J. Simpson verdict basically said, okay, now we know how it works in this country where races do stick together. I mean, I think that was a wake-up call for both sides, to see how it works.
No, I don't buy that.
You had people cheering in the streets when he was
that's what I mean.
Like it was a football game. I mean, listen. One of the other callers said earlier, or a couple of the callers have said, people are upset about the the justice, no justice. I mean, there was no justice. In a sense, could have been not bringing charges. Charges were brought, and excessive charges were brought, and a jury that was decided on by both sides chose to acquit.
Right.
I mean, that's based on the actual evidence that was presented to them. I mean, and you can't ask for anything more than that. And what our president should do is not take sides, and obviously he does take sides, because if he didn't take sides, the Justice Department wouldn't have come out with that, with the information about possibly looking at bringing charges within 12 hours of the verdict.
Well, I thought it was interesting, you go to your point about the jury. Jesse Jackson came out and started talking. I heard this morning that Jesse Jackson said that the jury didn't reflect a jury of his peers, i.e. Trayvon Martin's peers. It's because there wasn't people of color on the jury. And, it's like my first thought on that was, by the way, the jury of the peers is about the defendant, okay, not the victim.
Well, let's not even go. You don't have enough time for me when it comes to Jesse Jackson and
the race baiters
and the incredibly inaccurate and let's not even get into that. Listen, keep up the good work. Don't let this go. We need someone on at least the side of what I would call legal justice.
Absolutely.
To talk about this case.
That's what I talk about here is the facts. Just the facts, man.
Got it. All right, listen, I'm late for my gun permit class, so I got to run.
All right.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, my man. The facts. Exactly. The facts, people, the facts. Keep your eyes on the ball. And by the way, keep your eyes on the ball because meanwhile, NSA, that's what's up. All right? The NSA, the Department of Justice, tapping the phones of journalists, the IRS targeting American citizens. This is just that shiny object used to distract you. Meanwhile, Edward Snowden, that's still going on. This is just a distraction. Don't forget that, people. It's a distraction. All right, we're going to go on a little break, but when I come back, I'm going to have a very special guest, Crystal Wright, if she calls in. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Don't touch that dial. Back in a moment with Edward Woodson on 880 AM, The Biz.
One goat can make the difference between nourishment and hunger. One goat can make the difference between poverty and sustained income. In the war-torn areas of southern Sudan, one goat can make the difference between life and death. Find out how you can help. Visit goatsfortheoldgoat.org. That's goats, F-O-R, theoldgoat.org. Fighting hunger, one goat at a time.
Gun World of South Florida is a state-of-the-art shooting facility with full gun shop with 50 years experience as gunsmiths, located in Deerfield. Book a class online at gunworldofsouthflorida.com with professional instructors or call 954-596-0526. A cool place to visit with climate control, gun sales and rentals, and extra-wide shooting booths. Visit or call Gun World of South Florida at 954-596-0526.
Don't believe for 1 second that the banks or the government are going to help you modify your mortgage or reduce your payments. It just won't happen. I'm Richard Burton. I've represented hundreds of South Florida homeowners defending the foreclosures on their homes. And anyone who takes money from you claiming that they can reduce your payments and modify your mortgage, it's wrong and it's illegal. You need an experienced lawyer to help you through the process. Don't ignore the process or you will lose your home. I'm Richard Burton.
South Florida's only business radio station.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
880 AM, The Biz. He's still so mad. Now back to your host, Edward Woodson, on 880 AM, The Biz.
All right, real quick, I've got Ron from Phoenix.
Just a comment, Edward. No, you've got some other callers stacking up. Always be aware of the agenda, what's going on behind the scenes. As Glenn Beck pointed out some years back on TV, Soros funded, I think it was over 1,000 of these little splinter, shadowy organizations that work through the back door of the White House, and they go out and foment, all kinds of upset, and they actually physically go into crowds. They're instigators. They also do this online.
Obviously.
They're called sock puppets.
Yeah, no question about it.
They make comments.
No question about it. All right, thanks a lot, Ron. I appreciate the comment. All right, I got a very special guest, Crystal Wright, editor, political pundit, strategist. She's with Baker Wright in D.C. She's been on numerous shows, CNN, HLN, Fox, the conservative black chick, Crystal Wright. How are you, Crystal?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I saw you the other day on HLN, man. I don't know how you sat through that.
Yeah, it's hard. They asked me to provide commentary during the George Zimmerman trial, and I think I've been doing it for a little over 2 weeks now.
I'm sure.
And yeah, some days I think I need to take a tranquilizer before I go on the air. Because most of I think I'm one of I'm the only guest who, except Mark Eigler.
Oh, he's horrible.
Yeah. But they like a liberal perspective with respect to the trial. They didn't want to talk about the facts, really. And then, at times I become the conservative punching bag.
Of course. I noticed that. Everybody just piled up on you.
Yeah, it's not. And it doesn't provide for a thoughtful conversation about really what's going on in this country beyond the Zimmerman trial and the great discomfort Americans still have with talking about race. I mean, we see that being played out with, the trial happened. Before that, George Zimmerman was arrested. The state bowed to pressure to arrest him, even though last year they had no case. And I'm not minimizing the fact that a young man is dead. It's tragic. It's awful. But the fact is they didn't have enough evidence to bring the case in the first place. They did it anyway. They said, okay, we will accept whatever the jury decides. The jury then finds George Zimmerman not guilty, and they still won't accept it.
No.
Now they want the Department of Justice to file a civil rights case against George Zimmerman. On what grounds?
Yeah, I don't understand it. One of the things that I saw that you had written, one of your tweets, I actually retweeted it, was at David Gregory, at Meet the Press. Why do you continue to demean blacks by having the Reverend Al on your show? You don't have a white spokesman. I thought that was genius.
Right, and I think that's really boils down to me how I feel about this entire case. The dumbing down of black people and certain black liberals buy into it by actually doing what the media wants them to do. Talking about David Gregory, he has Al Sharpton on all the time.
All the time.
Al Sharpton is not credible in any stretch of the imagination. He's not a reverend. he's nothing, if anybody remembers him, his claim to fame
was
when Tawana Brawley alleged that white New York City police officers raped her. It was all a hoax. It was a stage. She smeared, I think, it was some kind of dog or cat feces all over her body, jumped in a trash can, and then sat there. Her neighbors watched her do this, by the way, everybody. Then Al Sharpton got up there and kept telling the police that this happened, justice must be served. So he was exposed as a fraud, and so was she. But really what bothers me is Edward, white people, David Gregory doesn't have, when something happens like the Casey Anthony case, right? He doesn't have people on his show. Let's see what white America is thinking. Because white America is allowed to be individuals, right? You guys are allowed to be individuals. But when it comes to black, and even Hispanics, you don't have so-called self-appointed Hispanic spokespeople. No, but so black people, apparently, we're the only race that can't think for ourselves. We have to be told what to say by our spokespeople, and then we have to have our spokespeople go on national television and tell white people what we're thinking.
Yeah, and you know what, and I said this at the top of my show, Crystal, is that this is a classic division. This is being used to divide people.
Yes.
And if people and black people should wake up and see this.
Black people need to stop being used as pawns.
Yeah.
And I wrote about this for my blog, which I'm going to put up this week. Here's what is even equally disturbing. So, the media has been foaming at the mouth for riots, right?
Yeah,
Oh, what will black people do? Will they riot? Well, like I said on Dr. Drew's show, and people don't want to hear this, and they want to lambast me for it, black people are not savages. We're not all living in the same box. So black people will react in different ways, just like white people, to the verdict, just like Hispanics and everybody else under the sun. But what some black people did is they bought into this brainwashing, and they did exactly what the news media wanted them to.
Exactly.
They stood outside the Stanford courthouse. They carried their little signs. They didn't even know, a lot of these, I will argue, that a lot of blacks standing outside the Stanford courtroom, and there were other races too, but predominantly blacks, they probably didn't even know why they were standing out there. They didn't know the facts of the case, but they had been told to believe that this was about a white man murdering a black man.
Yeah.
And it was racist.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the tweets was this Joaquin Castro, this Democratic congressman. He said, defense attorney Mark O'Mara may incite a riot by his arrogance alone. Talk about insult to injury, because O'Mara had said that if Zimmerman had been black, he never would have been charged with Trayvon Martin's murder. And he added that those people who decided they were going to make Zimmerman a scapegoat would not have if he was black. And he's absolutely right.
We all know that this is all true, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about this, too. Look at Chicago. Right now, Chicago, and I didn't realize this until I did a little research on it, because Senator Mark Kirk, he's one of the senators in Illinois, is he's demanding the Justice Department and the FBI and DEA crack down on gang violence. Do you know how many gang members there are in Chicago? 100,000, okay? And the predominance, most of the gang members are black, and most of the violence in Chicago is black-on-black crime. Blacks killing each other with guns over drugs. So Mark O'Mara was absolutely right. Nothing would have happened. There wouldn't have been national attention with this case if George Zimmerman was black killing another black kid. Again, I'm not minimizing the loss of life. I think it's tragic. You have a 17-year-old young man who is dead. I think the reason why the case failed on the state's behalf is because they could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that George Zimmerman acted with malicious intent. Okay? That's just it. And I'm not saying George Zimmerman is innocent of, I have a problem that he got out of his car as a neighborhood watch person and went and looked after, went kind of following Trayvon Martin. When neighborhood watch people are every police law enforcement person will tell you they're supposed to watch and call the police. I think that was a grave mistake. So at the end of the day, however, something happened, a fight happened, and George Zimmerman felt his life was threatened, and unfortunately, he used the force of a gun.
Yeah, and that's all this is. It's self-defense.
Right. It's unfortunate.
Right.
I mean, I think we would all agree it's sad, okay, all
Absolutely.
the way around. But I just don't like the way it's been turned into, it's been overblown into a larger conversation. Yes, we do need to have a conversation about race, but everything isn't about, when racism really occurs, we have totally trivialized it.
Absolutely.
Through this.
All right, I got to cut you off, unfortunately. I could do a whole show with you, Crystal. Thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it. All right, take care. Crystal Wright. All right, we're out of time. Check out my website, edwardwoodson.com. Also, like us on Facebook, The Edward Woodson Show, and send me your friend requests to Edward Woodson on Facebook. Good day, America. I'm out.
Thank you for tuning in to The Edward Woodson Show, changing talk radio forever. Listen to The Edward Woodson Show every day, 7 to 8 a.m., and replay at 11 p.m. here on 880 a.m. The Biz.